The race to impose or challenge new voter ID regulations as we march closer to Election Day, this time on the program. In Ohio, North Carolina, Wisconsin, and others, states have hesitated in imposing new higher bars to the polling booth for otherwise eligible voters. Giant Texas looks prepared to put its new law into full effect. Joining us to talk about the battles over voter ID, from Washington, Ashley Spillane, president of Rock the Vote, an organization which works to build political power for young voters. From New York, Wendy Weiser, director of the Democracy Program at the Brennan Center for Justice at NYU's School of Law. The Brennan Center is representing the plaintiffs in the case against the Texas law. And also in D.C., Horace Cooper, a senior fellow at the National Center for Public Policy Research. Welcome to all of you. Horace, let me start with you. What does it tell you that appellate courts have come up with different ways to look at the same set of issues? Are we far from being of one mind about how to proceed?
I guess it does tell us that we're a little bit far afield from a unified position, but we do know what the ultimate outcome is because the court has already looked at this in 2008 and has answered that question. And the real question is, what new statutes or old statutes will people identify as their way of getting around that Indiana ruling by the Supreme Court? That was 6-3, by the way.
Wendy Weiser, does the Indiana ruling give anybody who's on your side of the question a tougher road forward?
Actually, the Indiana ruling was a very narrow ruling and doesn't apply to this new species of ID law like in Texas and in Wisconsin that we're talking about today. These laws are being challenged under a variety of provisions, including that they are actually discriminatory on the basis of race, and that's what we found in Texas. The court actually held that the law was actually passed for the purpose of discriminating against certain groups of voters and making it harder for them to participate. The facts of the Indiana decision was very limited to the record and the facts in the case on the broader claim of the right to vote at stake in these cases.
Now, in the Indiana decision, and correct me if I'm wrong, part of the decision rested on the fact that they could find no convincing proof that these laws actually harmed handicapped voters trying to exercise the franchise. In the case of Texas, the lower appellate level court did find that they had discriminatory purpose in these laws, but that at the higher appellate level, they didn't find that. Is this really headed to the Supreme Court to be decided once and for all?
The Supreme Court's been asked to actually reverse the Fifth Circuit ruling that's blocking the district court injunction in the Texas case. The district court blocked the law, and the Fifth Circuit did not actually say that the district court decision was wrong in any way. They just blocked it because it was too close to the election, they said. But they thought that that might cause confusion. We actually think that there's actually going to be greater confusion from trying to implement such a sweeping and restrictive ID law for the first time in a major federal election at this time.
Horace Cooper, what are these laws for?
Okay, well, the purpose of these laws are part of the legislature's responsibilities to see to it that the constitutional right that they have to lay out the election rules are carried out in a way that brings confidence in the minds of the citizens in that community, as well as the state legislature itself. As it happens, when this is polled, blacks, whites, browns, the entire diaspora of America supports this at between 60 to 70%.
What is the law
Well, a lot
for?
of people...
As I said, the purpose of the law is to provide the kind of assurance that the legislature has in carrying out election rules, that they're going to be occurring in a fair, above-board process that is free from the kinds of concerns that a lot of Americans identify. They say one of their biggest reasons for not participating is they don't believe their vote will count, and this measure, when they're told about it, encourages them to go in and participate because it means that their vote will be more meaningful.
Wendy Weiser, go ahead.
You know, we can all agree that it's important to protect the integrity of our election, but we should also agree that we shouldn't be passing laws that make it harder for hundreds of thousands of eligible citizens to participate. And there is absolutely no evidence that these particular new restrictions increase confidence in elections in any way. And in fact, there have been significant political science studies to that effect. You know, a lot has changed since the Indiana decision in 2008. That was before any of these laws had been put in effect, and now there's a lot of facts, and a lot more facts that weren't yet available to the court. 600,000 eligible and registered citizens in Texas currently don't have any IDs that would be accepted if this law is allowed to go into effect this election. That's 600,000 people, 300,000 in Wisconsin. These are huge numbers. We've seen a recent study just come out from the Government Accountability Office showing that these new strict ID laws, which had never been put in place before, these are much different than the kinds of ID laws that Americans are used to.
Well, later in the program, we'll talk about the efforts to get people those credentials that they're found to be wanting at the moment. But right now, I want to bring in Ashley Spillane because you work on behalf of young voters, first-time voters. We've heard that this will both encourage and discourage them. Which is it, in your view?
We are finding it to be discouraging. This is a very complicated situation, being made even more complicated by all the recent developments. These laws across the country, not just the ID laws, are all specifically targeted at reducing turnout amongst young people and people of color, and it is really disconcerting. We are out there on the front lines fighting to protect young people's right to vote and to participate. It is an opportunity that I think we all have as a country right now to be encouraging more participation, to encourage everyone to get involved. And Horace isn't wrong. People are frustrated with the system right now, but reducing the number of people who are eligible to participate is not going to encourage greater participation.
It's a widespread rite of passage to get a driver's license in much of the country. Barring the access to a driver's license, a lot of kids go and get state ID that looks like a driver's license because they want to be able to drink once they're able legally to do that. They need to show who they are from time to time. Who are these kids who don't have any form of government-issued photo ID?
Well, in urban areas in the country where you don't need a driver's license, people who use public transportation, people who can't afford to go out and spend money on either identification or the things that you're talking about that most people bring up. They say, if I need an ID to drink or to travel, I should be able to have it for voting. But that's not what voting is about. It's about free and fair access to everyone, not just people who choose to get identification to participate in the other types of activities we're talking about.
We'll talk about what makes voting different later in the program. We'll have more Inside Story from Al Jazeera America after a short break.